celebration day and be there at the end.
Alex, good luck, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's check in with Robbie Floyd. He's got someone that'll get a lot of cheers, huh, Robbie?
Yeah, I did about 1,000 fans around me. I mean, literally in this 10-foot spot. Danica Patrick, the fans love you here. They love that you finished 6th place. That was a heck of a turnaround from an ill-handling car early at Indy to finish 6th.
Yeah, thanks. It was a good comeback. We kept our heads down. The guys did a great job on the stops, and you know, we finally got the GoDaddy car up to where it should have been. Working really hard here at Texas too. I think that we're gonna have a good car. I don't know how it's gonna go down. I think it's gonna be really crazy today. All of us are such a similar speed that well, I think it's gonna be good for the fans.
We listen to your scanners and hear how you talk to your crew and let them know what the car is doing. And you said, I think this is a good car right off the bat yesterday.
Yeah. We made a really good change really early, so that helped be able to work even more. And you know, it's always nice when you can get a car to a point where you can actually start to think about speed and some other things. So, you know, I don't know what to think, like I said, because of how crazy it's going to be out there, but I think that we have a pretty good car at this point.
1.5 mile oval at Kansas, now back at the 1.5. Is it your comfort zone? You're back on the ovals. You're done with the road for a bit.
Yeah. Well, you know, I still have good results on the road courses every now and again, but it's that darn qualifying. So we're starting off okay. I think we're starting 8th today, so so that's not too bad. There's 26 cars, which is a ton of cars, so it's going to be really important to carve through traffic, be able to use all of the space out there, and you know, go where you need to go to get clear.
Good luck, have fun out there. How many Danica Patrick fans are in here? Yo?
Wow, look at that crowd around her. Thank you, Robbie. And as those driver intros continue, we want to give you some driver updates. First off, Davey Hamilton, he was scheduled to race here tonight 9 years after a horrific accident here left him seriously injured. It would have been the first time Hamilton raced outside of Indy since that race. But he was involved in a crash with Thomas Scheckter last week, and his DeFerrin Dragon Racing teammate Rafa Matos was caught up in a later tangle. The team could only prepare one car this week for Matos. And Scheckter will be back driving for Dreyer and Reinbold this week after finishing 15th at Indy. Thomas will drive the number 24 car tonight, filling in for the injured Mike Conway, who is out for at least 3 months, but we are happy to report he has been released from the hospital. And when we return here to Texas Motor Speedway, I will be joined by our own Robbie Buell and Jan Bigas to talk about those wild final laps of the 500. This is IndyCar Central on Versus. Texas Motor Speedway and IndyCar Central here on Versus. The Firestone 550 is going to start here shortly, but right now I want to bring in Jan Bigas and Robbie Buell to talk about the final laps of the 500. First of all, Robbie, how is Mike Conway?
Well, Mike, I know you're watching. Hello, everybody from here sends their best for a speedy recovery. An update on Mike, incredibly, he's been released from the hospital, so that's great news. Now he's got a tough road to recovery. But what's incredible, possibly in 3 months, he's going to be back in a race car. So we're all pulling for you from that. We got to know, though, for Mike, for any driver, to not be here while all his buddies are racing and watching his car run around here, it's a tough deal, Indy.
It is tough, Robbie. If we go back to look to see what unfolded that led to that accident, you go to the back straightaway, look at the difference in speed. Ryan Hunter-Reay is 209, Danica Patrick 210. They're saving fuel, but look at the difference. Mike Conway 219 and his teammate Justin Wilson the lap before that, that's 221 miles an hour as an average.
And look at the run that Mike has. And Ryan Hunter-Reay, it's almost like the parachute's going to pop when he runs out of gas. Mike has nowhere to go but over him and into the fence.
When you look at that disparity in speed, you can look like Ryan Hunter-Reay is looking good, but he found out right when he got into the corner, that was definitely not the case.
It's not how people think. It's not like in your road car where you have an actual a meter in there that registers how much fuel you have. It's all done off calibration, off of math. There's no exact science to it, but I knew it was coming at some point, and when it ran out of fuel, it was like hitting on the brakes. I mean, it just went from full pipe all the way, just the engine was shut down. And it's unfortunate because there was nowhere for Mike to go, and the immediate second that I ran out of fuel, he was already launching over me.
And when you look at that scenario, Robbie, and it's worth talking about, a lot of people, Lindy, were talking about, well, how do you end up with these fuel races? It wouldn't matter how much fuel you have in the tank. If you have 22 gallons, 32, 42, there's always going to be somebody that'll bring out a caution randomly. In this case, Sebastian Saavedra crashes. There's a caution at 163. If you're a leader, Robbie, you've got to pit. Because if there's a caution towards the end of the race, you give away the Indy 500 if you didn't. It forces you into saving fuel, but unfortunately, it makes it dangerous also.
It does. And fuel strategy has always been a part of the IndyCar races. But I think the series has always been very good about making things safer. So they really should look at this and say, hey, is there something we can do? We got a crash race car, a guy in the hospital. What can we do so he doesn't stumble and run out of gas and hit that handbrake? Maybe something they look at doing is saying, you got to finish this race and go through post-tech with a gallon of gas in the car. Still having fuel strategy, but not stumbling and coming to a stop, if you will.
Now, having to finish the race with some ethanol certainly would be fantastic from a safety standpoint, but you have to weigh the differences. You could have someone win the race, then they have to go to post-race tech, and they may not have actually been the winner of the Indy 500. So that's a tough thing to balance. I know the series wants to look at it.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring in Jack Arud. He's in our IZOD Pit Performance Center. And Jack, fortunately, there have just been so many advancements in safety over the years.
And Wendy, I think that's the case. That's something that we've got to keep in mind. What the IZOD IndyCar Series has tried to do is each and every time there's an accident, they want to widen the margin, make the envelope even bigger for survivability. We're talking about things like these accelerometers that all the drivers wear that measure the G-forces and the impact of a crash. The helmet technology has gone up. And in fact, to the point where if you take a look over the last 10 years, the number of safety innovations that have taken place are astounding. Starting with the safer barrier that you can see behind our graphic. We've all heard about the Hans device. It's a hats-off bladder. It's a blow-up that allows the helmet to come off in the case of an injury. The gearbox attenuator has reduced the injuries caused by backing into the wall. Everything is measured by a crash data recorder. And remember the SWIM system, they're basically tethers. The bottom line is that whenever we see a horrific accident, like what occurred to Mike Conway, that's when the IZOD IndyCar officials download the data into a box like this, analyze it, and then they make continued improvements. I think that's all you can ask of a sport where injury is part and parcel to competing.
Thank you so much, Jack, for that, and thank you, Jan and Robbie, for being here to talk about it. We could talk on and on and on about it, but bottom line is Mike Conway is okay. He's out of the hospital, and for that, we really could not be more thankful. Well, now let's turn to some news happening that we want to pass along to you. First of all, a Baltimore race has been added. It is August 5th through the 7th. It's a 2.4-mile temporary road course incorporating the Inner Harbor and Camden Yards, and then also the new engine platform. That will debut in 2012. A maximum of 6 cylinders, maximum displacement 2.4 cubic liters, 550 to 700 horsepower, turbocharged. There was a press conference about it earlier today. Take a listen.
We listen to the fans, we listen to the participants, and particularly the owners and the drivers and the manufacturers. And while there was no clear consensus on the direction to reinvent the IndyCar Series itself, there was one overriding clear mandate, and that's to make the series attractive for manufacturers to enter and bring back the variety to the engine and the chassis manufacturers participating in the series.
And the board hopes to have an announcement on the chassis by the end of this month. Well, now let's salute the Mazda Road to Indy drivers who won last weekend in Indianapolis. Wade Cunningham won his 3rd Freedom 100, the Firestone Indy Lights race held on Carb Day, while Connor Daly won his Star Mazda class, and Patrick McKenna his U.S. 1000 race last Saturday. Drivers including Marco Andretti, Simona Di Silvestro, and Graham Rahal, they have all used Mazda-powered series as stepping stones to the IndyCar level. On any given weekend, more Mazda and Mazda-powered cars are raced on circuits across North America than any other car. Well, were you surprised at Penske's results at the 500? When we come back, we'll talk to the drivers from Team Penske, trying to put all that disappointment behind them. Welcome back to Texas Motor Speedway. There have been 20 races here at Texas, 14 different winners. 2 races were the conclusion to legendary careers back in the day when they raced twice a year here in Texas. Al Unser Jr. won the spring race, the final win of his career. And then, in 2003, Gil de Ferran won from pole position. It was his last race of the IndyCar season. DeFerrin drove for Roger Penske that year. 1 of 5 wins Penske has here at Texas. Helio Castroneves has 3 of those wins, Sam Hornish the other. Hornish also won 2 other times at Texas, driving for John Barnes and Panther Racing. And speaking of Penske, last